Welcome to Pride and Promotion, the podcast that celebrates every color under the rainbow and dives deep into the heart of marketing, exploring how innovation and diversity can drive business growth. I'm Joe Federico, your host on this exciting journey and owner of J. Federico Marketing. Every week, we reveal the magic behind effective brand storytelling and examine how inclusive marketing can transform your business landscape. So get ready, because this episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. Hey folks, how are you? My name is Joe Federico of J. Federico Marketing, and you guys know this, the host of the Pride and Promotion podcast. But today I have a very special guest, Blake Allwood, author, and I'd like to welcome him to the show. Blake, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Feeling spooky today, in spooky season, ready to have a great...
I'm very spooky. I have my ghost shirt on and my Haunted Hearts t-shirt. I'm ready for it.
Love that. I love that. I'm wearing my shirt today for the recordings from Punky
Nice.
Tops. It says, "You can't scare me, I'm gay." So we're definitely on theme today. So
Uh,
I want to get into how we connected and, get into your books and persona building and everything LGBT horror, but I want to give you the
mhm.
floor to introduce yourself and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm Blake Allwood. I write mostly romance under that pen name. I'm also Adam J. Ridley, which is the pen name that I use for my fantasy and science fiction romance-based books. They're still romance, but I do have two different pen names. And you and I met through one of my groups called Gay Men Loving Gay Books, which
Yes,
is an all gay male group dedicated to gay literature.
absolutely. On
So
Facebook. Yes.
on Facebook, correct.
Yeah. So you know what? Why don't we're going to flip things up a little bit like we usually do here on the show.
Okay.
How did you start the group on Facebook? Because social media, so important. Groups are so important to reach different communities. Tell us more about that.
Well, I mean, there's not a so the gay community is fragmented. And
Hmm.
it's such a unique group of people because we don't come from one walk of life. I you have people from every culture, from every part of the world. And so when we try to get together, that has traditionally been at a bar or at a gay event or LGBTQ event. And as those have slipped away, social media has become really how we connect with one another and how
Sure.
we communicate with one another. So, I mean, it is really, really important. I would also say social media may be the death knell to the way we used to do it back in the 90s and 80s,
Hmm.
where
Hmm.
we would meet together at the bar. Um, but that's, there's positive and negative to both of that. So,
Sure. How long have you had the group on Facebook?
so um, I started that group, I think 3 years ago, and it didn't do
Beautiful.
much for 2 years. There was
Hmm.
absolutely no movement. I think I had about 100 people. Most of them were authors that I had connected with
Sure.
and had persuaded to join us. And then around July of this year, it exploded. And we went from 100 to 200 members up to around 17,000 now.
Wow.
We were over 17,000 and we dropped back down to about 16,900. But it's a
Hmm.
lot of people.
Uh-huh. That is a big group. A big
It's a
group
huge group
of gay men loving gay books.
and it's very interactive. So it's not like, I have Blake Allwood Book Club, which has 1,500 members, but it's not very active.
Sure.
Occasionally people will talk and interact with each other. The 17,000 members are all interacting. So
Hmm.
it's a lot. So much stuff going on in there,
Yeah.
as you well know.
I'm part of the group. I found it recently, on groups I may enjoy. I certainly enjoy it. I love the conversation. But how do you get uh, a gaggle of gays together and like how do you lead the conversations? You specifically as an author, like what's your goal and how do you keep everybody in line on social?
No, well, I'll start with the goal. Um, so much of gay fiction is um, run by people who are not own voice authors or uh, the gay community.
Sure.
Um, and so I've been in a few groups where gay men have come in and asked questions and have been put off fairly quickly. And I realized we didn't really have a place for gay men in particular. So you have the LGBTQ rainbow,
Hmm.
but gay men in particular didn't really have any representation, and that concerned me on many levels. So I thought, we really need a place where gay men can come in and listen, uh, interact, maybe talk about books. I never thought it would be very big. I thought maybe 30, 40 men
Sure.
would enjoy it. Um, and that is just not the case. What we found is there's such a hunger for it. I mean, there's just people grabbed hold of it pretty quickly.
Hmm. Yeah.
As far as the goal of the group, that's changed, I think, over time. The goal that I would say that because I certainly can't manage that on my own. There's
Hmm.
6 administrators that help me out now, and so we have. I think our overall goal is to try to get more gay men reading books written by gay men. And
Hmm.
by gay, I mean pansexual, bisexual, transgender, anyone who
Yeah.
identifies as male who loves men.
Sure. Sure.
We're open in that way.
Yeah. That is so important. What you're saying first and foremost is it really takes a village to run a group on Facebook,
Oh yeah,
right?
it
Number
does.
two, we come from all walks of life, even within our own
Yeah,
personal stories as gay men of different ages, of different body types, of different experiences. We all have a
hmm
story to tell, but be, being part of a Facebook group like yours is really important because otherwise you know, especially during COVID, we weren't going to bars to have conversations. We were
True,
looking to the internet, looking to social media to find our communities as
absolutely.
well. Yeah,
hmm
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, social media. During COVID especially, social media was the only connection I had to the world outside of myself.
right.
Um, Being an author who is rather introverted, I actually enjoyed COVID. That was a great time. I didn't have to deal with people. My husband was working 80-hour weeks. It was just me
Right,
and my books that I was
right.
writing, and I wrote a
That's
lot of them, so
uh-huh. Uh-huh.
it
So
was good for me.
so yeah, I mean, you know what? But that's interesting. I'm glad you told me that and us that, the audience. I would have never guessed that you were an introvert by the way you present yourself online at all.
Well, I'm so back in the day they made us take the Myers-Briggs in college,
Uh-huh.
and the Myers-Briggs actually breaks down your personality type into 4
Mhm.
different categories. Intro, Introvert and extrovert is the first level that they look at, and
Right.
on that scale, I'm actually right in the middle. Um, and so I lean toward extrovert, which is why I look this way. but, but in reality, I pretty much I spend most of my time alone, and I don't have a problem with that. I used to think I would. When I was young, I thought it was the end of the world, but now
Sure,
I rather
sure.
like it.
You would you can never tell. You present yourself so robustly on your group and social media and starting these conversations for gay men to partake in. So I'm just so happy to have you on and tell us
Well,
more
I'm
about
happy to be
this.
here.
So you know what? That's really interesting too, Blake. Is so how did you build? Let's rewind. uh,
Mhm.
how did you build this author persona and also your pen name? And then how did that translate into getting onto social media when there really wasn't social media? Let's start there.
Well, we'll go back a little bit. So I never thought I would be a writer at all. I actually failed out of graduate school when I was a teacher
Mhm.
because they wanted me to write papers. I had 5 classes. They were all asking me to write papers, and I
Sure.
just couldn't do it. I froze.
Wow.
And as a result, all of those classes turned into withdrawals, which turned into a not a good grade. And
Right. Right.
so I had it in my head that I would never be able to write. Um, and then I went back into my husband and I owned tech business together, and I needed to get a degree in healthcare. So I went back to school. I got my master's in healthcare management, and it was all writing. And I didn't freeze. I loved it.
Right.
And this was right before COVID. Our son, we were foster parents for 12 years,
Hmm.
and one of my children came out of the closet, and he was really struggling. His family, he still had contact with his family, were really conservative,
Hmm.
and they were telling him that he was all the things that conservatives tell gay kids. And he was struggling a lot, and he was really making bad choices that
Hmm.
scared me as his parent, having lived through the AIDS epidemic when it was killing us in the 90s and the 80s.
Wow.
Um, so I sat down with him and I talked to him, and he couldn't hear anything I said. And so I ended up writing a short story. He loved it. It did get my point across, and then I was hooked. And
Wow.
so I started writing. I when I was in graduate school, I was struggling because I wanted to write. I didn't really want to do graduate school work, but I wasn't
Sure.
going to fail graduate school again. Once was
No,
enough. And so I actually completed the degree and have a like 3.89. So I did pretty good,
absolutely.
mainly because I started writing again. Um, but during COVID, I had all the time to write. The problem is that how do you market LGBTQ books?
Hmm.
That's really hard.
Hmm.
And there's a community of people. I discovered there's a woman by the name of Lucy Lennox. She's a writer. I met her in 2018, and I wrote and I said, I really would like to write gay romance books, and I just read yours,
Hmm.
and I loved it. Can you tell me more about how to make this happen? And she immediately wrote me back and said, hey, this is a great place for you to be. You absolutely should do this. Um, and she really encouraged me. She really helped me get my name out there.
Hmm.
Um, she helped me get Blake Allwood set up, which Blake Allwood is a pen name. My real name is very boring, and it's what it's not John Doe, but it's really close,
Oh,
and so you
no.
really can't write into that. So Blake Allwood came into existence. She helped me come up. She didn't help me come up with a name, but she helped me establish a social media presence, and then I was off to the races.
Hmm.
And that was in 2000, the end of 2018, and by 2019, I released my first book.
Hmm. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you really created this persona. I mean, not out of nowhere, and we'll dive into that in a moment, but
It, yeah, it
you,
was close to out of
yeah,
nowhere.
yeah. You concocted this, this authorship, this pen name, this persona that wanted to write gay romance. Period.
Yes. Yeah, and I have always liked romance. When I was a teenager, I grew up in Jacks Creek, Tennessee. Um, and the county that I was in was tiny. And I went to the library and I said to the teacher, I said, I'm bored. I would like to have a book to read, but I don't know what I want to read. And she said, oh, I know what you need. And she handed me Mary Stewart, which was a romance author from back in the day.
Uh-huh.
And how she knew this little gay boy. She knew me. She saw me coming. She saw
She
this
had you
little gay
pinpoint.
boy.
She's like, "Girl, I have you covered."
And she exactly. She didn't say that, but that's kind of what she said.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And so she handed me this book. She says, I think this is for you. And I'll never forget because I was I was so shocked that she had hit the nail so hard on the head.
Hmm.
So thank goodness for librarians who can see the little gay boys that need romance books.
Hmm.
So I was
Those
hooked.
and English teachers know too. Just by the
Oh
way.
yes.
Uh-huh.
English
Okay.
teachers and Spanish teachers, by the way. My
Yes.
Spanish teacher, who was also an English teacher, is still a really great friend of mine. And
Wow.
her daughter is also a romance writer and has
Wow.
helped me kind of get things going. But yes, teachers and librarians, they are the ones that save us or have.
Have, yes, and continue to do so. They're so important not only for our community but for children, growing minds.
Yeah, I mean,
So
especially if you think in a conservative community like where I grew up.
sure,
I mean, I didn't even know what gay meant. I hear it, I heard it. People would use it in a derogatory way, but I had no idea what it meant
right.
until I went to college.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, they having those people in the community are very important.
Extremely important. So this Blake Allwood, sir, how did you like what are his likes? What are his what's the persona's likes? How did he evolve his writing? How did you start on social media when you went 0 to 60 and off to the races?
So I don't know that I thought that much about it. So Blake Allwood, I honestly don't know that I thought this would go very far.
Hmm.
Um, I I had a desire to write a book. I did write a book. I didn't like the first book, so I put it aside, and then I wrote Aiden Inspired, which was the first one I published.
Sure.
And again, I had Lucy who was saying you really do need to have a social media presence. So I created Blake Allwood profile, and then I created Blake Allwood book group, book club,
Hmm.
which I used then to kind of let people get to know me. I it back in So social media was very different in 2019 than it is today.
Hmm.
Um, Facebook was
Absolutely.
much more friendly to gay authors or to authors in general. They
Sure.
had a platform where you could really get your name out there. You could talk to people. You could get to know your readers. So by the time I released Aiden Inspired, I had quite a few people who just they grabbed it and they ran with it. So Aiden Inspired sold really, really well, which encouraged me to write the next one,
Sure.
and then write the next one. But again, 2019 is when COVID came out. So we it was 2020, January 2020 is when everything began to shut down. But
Very slowly.
um, I had already written a couple books by then, and then um, so having all that time on my hand, I really started writing a lot more and
Right.
spending a lot more time on social media, Facebook in particular.
Hmm. Hmm.
Facebook is my go-to.
And you found a lot of success through that platform, which is amazing.
I have.
Yeah.
I have
Uh-huh.
found all of my success through that platform or through Amazon, but mostly
Yes.
through Facebook.
Okay. How do you market yourself through Amazon? We're curious.
So that's changed as well. When I first started, Amazon had a really good program where you could advertise yourself. Um, uh, I could, they would really promote my books. Um,
Sure.
when I have a new book came out, they were quick to reach out to everyone who liked me and to tell them that the books were coming out. So that helped a lot as well. I learned how to run ads, which I'm not very techy, so it took me a while to learn how
But
to
it's
do
more
all of
for the
that.
course.
But uh, I have a very techy husband. Actually, I met him before AOL, before the internet. There was a
Wow.
system called the Bulletin Board System, a BBS, and he was on a BBS. And my roommate, who was also techie, we taught kindergarten together.
Hmm.
Um, she um, she felt sorry for me, so she got me onto this site. Um, it's not even a site. You would call in, and
Ooh.
they had 10 lines that could listen to each other. And so, needless to say, everyone was a computer geek except me.
Mhm.
I was not. So that's how I met my husband 30 years ago.
Wow,
And
congratulations.
so, yes, 30 years Valentine's. But he's my tech guy, so he usually gets me onto all of the tech stuff, which is why I'm sitting in my chair with my computer in my lap and not some elaborate program that he would have set up that doesn't show my chins, by the way. He fixes it so that I don't
Oh
look
no, you look fabulous. Stop.
53 with chins.
Is that also
Yeah,
your
we've
place?
had this conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Do what?
Well, we have had this chat offline. Yeah,
We
pre
have.
green screen. No, you look A, you look fabulous. So you cut that out right now. B, Is that where the magic happens? Is that where you write your books? Where you're sitting now?
Yes, actually. I also have a desk that the husband created me that
Oh,
lifts and sits. So I stand up
uh huh,
not
uh
very
huh.
often. Truth be known, I sit here in the recliner and write
No,
most of the time.
as a writer myself, and we have a lot. We have to have you back, but we got to talk offline about the whole authorship and writing and gay everything, right? But writing, I don't stand up and write. I'm thinking of ideas on my back, and I'm
Yes.
recording myself, and I'm taking notes, and I'm in, gays can never sit still. So I am like, even when I do my content, for myself and for my clients, I'm always on the go. I never really
Yep.
sit in one spot unless I have to edit it and get it to print. Then you sit your, down and get to work. Hmm.
Yes. So I write sitting down. I pace when I'm thinking.
Yes.
I actually get my best ideas at night when I'm asleep. So if I have something
Really?
if I'm blocked for any reason,
Uh-huh.
sleeping on it almost always fixes it, and I figure out what I'm doing.
Right.
But
Right.
I also take walks and pace in the house and eat too much and drink too much coffee. I don't smoke, however, thank
Uh-huh.
goodness, but
Okay.
I do all the other bad stuff.
Okay. You know what? But authors are known, as you just said, are known to do a lot worse historically. So I think you're doing pretty well. Changing gears,
Luckily, I did
yeah,
not ever
luckily,
learn to
right?
smoke. Otherwise, I would
Right.
be in trouble.
I can enjoy a nice cigar once in a while when I'm on vacation or at the beach, but or even like a nice drink, once in a while, but not. I mean, I love to eat. I'm Italian. I
Yeah.
love to create. I love to pace. So I'm right on par with you, my friend. So
Yeah.
getting
How many
back to
times though have you gone to a conference with an author conference and you've got these chain smokers and you're like, oh
yes,
honey,
not
oh honey.
even not even an author conference. I've been to many conferences. There are a lot of chain smokers out there that need to go. I mean, hey, God bless to everyone, but
Yep.
I'm not one myself. So, but actually, I grew up with a lot of smokers, so that's kind of comforting to me in a way in the 80s and
Oh
90s.
honey, we
So,
all grew up with a lot of smokers.
yes,
If you grew up before a certain time, everybody in your life smoked. It's
yes,
just luck that you did.
yes, yes. So I'm really curious. I know our listeners are too about romance, right? Most of those
Yep.
authors, and I also back in the day years ago when I started writing my own queer horror romance novels, are women. So
Yes.
how do you market specifically to, or who do you market specifically to, knowing a lot of the authors are actually cis white female writing gay romance?
Yes.
So the floor is yours.
Well, I mean, so this topic is rather loaded. There's a lot of debate about this, and especially right now, there's a
Yeah.
lot of gay men who are asking the question, why are women so interested in the romance world?
Yes.
Um, Things have changed. I've done a lot of studying about it because it is my market, it is my career,
Hmm.
and so I I think I can give a little clarity in what I found. So I talked to a couple of male authors at Gay Romance Lit (GRL)
Hmm.
uh, conference in October that started writing back in the early 2000s, and they were telling me a little bit about the market back then that was much more gay male friendly. And MM means male romance,
Hmm.
so that it's what we would think of as gay romance. However, I do think gay romance has changed. I don't know that romance really represents men anymore.
Interesting. Okay.
I think it probably started out representing gay males in a different way, but
Right.
I would argue that really true to the word romance really doesn't represent gay men anymore. It really does represent something else. And
Hmm.
having spent a lot of time working with children, working in psychology and sociology, I do think, and anthropology, I do think you might I think MM romance is kind of the next step in feminism. I
Oh,
think it is a
I love
way for women to experience sexuality without all of the stigma
it.
that goes with being a woman in
Hmm.
society,
Right.
in Western society specifically. So I think that MM romance gives women a little power, because
Oh,
when you can remove the female aspect of it and they can experience it from a to male perspective, it's freedom.
it
And
is freedom.
as a
Okay.
result, you will find that a lot of women are very protective of MM romance
Hmm.
and can be attacking to gay men in particular. Uh, I told you that we created Gay Men Loving Gay books because there were gay men who would go into groups that weren't treated very well,
Right.
and some were treated very badly. And there's a lot of gay authors who are told that they should not be writing MM romance because it's not for men, it's for women.
Hmm.
So,
Right.
um, I am not okay with that. I think if you're I've only had a couple people say that to me, and I can promise you no one will say it to me again because I'm really not okay with it. I love that women are able to use male romance concepts to further the liberation of women
Sure.
sexuality. I love that. We need that because, no one is free until we're all free.
Preach.
And
Hmm.
so I am definitely behind women writing romance.
Right.
And my very favorite authors very often are women. But
How do
if
you
you want to,
feel? Oh, go
go
ahead. Go
ahead.
ahead. No, please.
Well, I want to hear what you had to say.
Uh, I wanted to bring in 2 points, and we'll certainly get back to because
Yeah,
we can talk about this forever. This is very interesting, especially as an author, and there are plenty of authors listening as well in the community. Um, I had my first experience years ago at a book signing in the Carolinas. This was a school teacher, about maybe like late 30s, early 40s, who came to my book
yeah.
signing and purchased my queer horror gay romance book and read it on the beach in about a day. I didn't realize that that was even possible, that that was another audience that I could possibly be reaching. Because, at
Yes.
least for me, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, when I'm writing, I'm a gay male writing
Mhm.
queer gay horror romance, wanting
Yes.
other males to feel liberated, and to experience the power that I'm feeling while I'm writing. That's my audience.
Yes.
But you can't control who reads your books after you publish it or when you go to
No.
book signings by
No,
any
you
means.
really just want people to read them, though. I mean, so
Yes. Make the
most of the time we
sale.
don't really care who you are. Just read it and give
Right.
us money.
Right.
Read it and give us money. We want money. Money
Yes.
is good, especially when your husband's threatening to make you go get a job.
Uh, but I didn't know that that was even possible years ago when
It's shocking.
the school teacher, as we were talking
Yes.
about, loved the gays, loved the gay romance, and I was like, oh, there's a whole other audience that I didn't know even existed years ago. Now I do. Now I play to that. But then I was also wondering your take on Christopher Rice, Anne Rice's son, whom I've interviewed in the
Yes.
past, has inspired me to, with my first
Yeah, yeah.
novel. Um, how do you feel about, or have you read his new romance novels, or do you plan on reading those?
I have not read it. I have just been introduced to Christopher maybe 3, 4 months ago.
Wow.
I don't
Okay.
read horror as I'm a romance guy. So
Sure.
I'm just now getting into horror. I do love it. I
Yeah.
found that I really like beating people up and killing them. I am kind of a slasher. So not in real life, by the
It's
way,
fun. So am I.
not in
In
real
my
life.
books. Right.
Yeah. So I wrote the Big Ben series, which I shot one of the characters. I blew one up in a mine shaft, and I beat one almost to death by a cartel
Okay.
from Juarez. So
Fun.
yeah, yeah. I'm kind of into that. So
Yeah.
I didn't know that about myself. This is new. This is something I'm just learning.
We learned. Yes.
But
Yeah.
Christopher is ridiculously popular. And so I don't know. I certainly in no way can compare myself to him.
Right.
Um, but I really do look forward to reading his books. I know that I loved Anne's books, his mom,
Mhm.
but
Right.
we're not our parents, even though, he
Right.
has the same name. We're not our parents. But
Correct.
I do look forward to seeing how he writes in comparison to Anne and how he does that. So
His prose is
you'd asked
so
me,
beautiful.
go ahead.
Yeah. No, his
Yeah, so
prose,
you
I
really
mean,
enjoy it.
but Anne's as well is very detailed, very unique, and we don't see a lot of that anymore, really, in literature, in my opinion. But you know, that's my
Well, wouldn't
soapbox.
it be wonderful if you had grown up with someone who loves literature and loves writing as much as Anne does? So I knew Anne through a very wonderful friend. She runs Gay Paranormal, or no, Paranormal Romance Incorporated, Paranormal
Okay.
Romance Inc.
Hmm.
And she was friends with Anne, and Anne actually had them come down and did wonderful things with them. So I know a little bit about Anne through her, and
Sure.
know that she was just apparently an amazing human being. Um, Fun to be around, really loved her craft.
Sure.
And I don't know her son very well, but it's from what I have learned in the last 3 months, it sounds like he's really a lot like her. But wouldn't it be great if you had that? If you had if your parents were that into writing,
Yeah.
what would you be able to accomplish?
Sure.
Um,
Like sky's the
I was
limit.
just glad that mine let me get out of chores and read sometimes.
Right. I originally, back in the day, growing up, kind of, college is not for everybody. I mean, I'm not saying me, but I think in general, that's just a general statement. I wanted to go back to school for special effects and makeup. I loved horror ever since I was a kid. And my parents were like, no, journalism, much better, right? Going back for
Yeah,
literature, absolutely. So I understand the struggle when you're really into something, and then, but sometimes your parents could be a deterrent and to be like, let's do something that makes money, and then and so forth and so on. But again, that could be a whole different conversation, a whole nother episode. You know, um,
yeah,
when it comes to heterosexual men, have you had anybody purchase your books that are straight or cis
yes.
white men? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I not as many as some others.
sure,
I am acquainted with Damon Suede, who is a very popular author,
sure,
and Damon has quite a few straight men who reads his books. Um, and his book, but if you read any of Damon's books, you get why. I mean, he writes very much what men in general like to read.
right,
I have a couple that I know who one of them actually beta reads my books and he loves them. And then I had an editor who asked, he actually came to me and says, would you be willing to let me edit your book? He needed experience, straight
sure.
guy. Um, and he loves my book. He said he loves my book. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't think it's about sexuality. Often I think it's about connection. It's about, do you like that author? Does that author speak to you? I am almost sure that both of my beta reader and my editor that I used for a while, both of them skip my sex scenes. One of them
Sure,
told me he skips the sex scenes,
fair
which is
enough.
fine. I think that's great. But for them to be able to connect with the story, I think that's wonderful. And you said earlier that you write toward gay men. So your audience, when you're writing in your mind, you're writing toward gay men.
True. Hmm.
And I think I do the same because as a gay man, I'm writing to myself.
Yes,
And
yes,
so I'm writing from my experiences, I'm writing from my perception. And so, yeah, I definitely am writing for two gay men. However, one has to remember for 30 years, I read romance novels, none of them written by men, all of them written by women, and for women.
yes,
And the audience was for women. So I think that you see a hybrid approach when you read my books. I don't think it's intentional. I'm not intentionally writing for women. Um, I'm intentionally writing for the gay audience when I first started writing, especially. And you can see a shift in my writing. especially when you compare Aiden inspired the first book and Romantic Rescue, which was one of my first books,
Sure.
and what I write uh, romance today. Like if you read my Melody series are very contemporary romance, and would appeal much more to uh, contemporary romance readers, which
Sure.
tend to be mostly women.
That makes
Although I
sense, though.
have a few guys who love them, so I can't say that. I need to be really clear. I have a lot of I have a lot of gay men who read my books, especially recently with the Gay Men Loving Gay books. I have a whole
Mhm.
new audience that I didn't have before, and they
Thank you,
love
social
the
media.
Melody books. Thank you,
Yeah.
social media. Yes, um, but yeah. So I don't really target. I don't write for. Really, if you want the truth of it, who I write for is that my foster son, the kid who was struggling, and
Beautiful.
he was already an adult. So yes, there's sex scenes in my books. I do not write sex scenes for teenagers, but he was already an adult, and I wanted him to be able to read what it's like to have a healthy sexual relationship with another man,
Sure.
because he's going to have to deal with that. And straight society teaches us from an early age when we're watching television. Even back in the 70s, we were being taught and groomed how to be in a healthy heterosexual relationship. We don't
How to
have
be a
that as gay
strong man.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And so we need something for young gay males to experience. Now, luckily, that's changed a lot. And you've got television shows like Love Victor, Love Simon. You
Yeah.
have, my mind is blank, but the Disney one that came out recently.
Right.
I can't. There's a
It's
lot of them that are out now. I've watched all of them too. That's why I can't believe that I'm blanking on it. But there's a lot of really good stuff that's coming out that have good role models for kids to follow that are LGBTQ.
sure.
Um, so mine are more new adult, so college age kids. But I still remember being a 19-year-old kid coming out of the closet with no clue what it meant to be gay. And if you're growing up in a conservative community, you probably don't really understand the whole concept of it either. And
No.
porn is certainly not going to teach you that. So I'm
Absolutely
not, you know,
not.
I got access to
No.
porn, but
Right.
you know, I think we need more literature, we need more television series, we need more stuff showing young gay men how to be in a relationship with other men.
We
And
need to
I will
be
die on that hill.
and you know what? And I'm right there with you. We need more representation. We need to continue to write these books for our
Yes.
community as playbooks
Mm-hmm.
and continue to get our asses on social media and talking about these and shouting from the rooftops
Right.
and helping our people of
Right.
our community. Drop the mic. That's it. That's it.
Well, and you know, so this goes back to the conversation of women versus men
Mm,
and people who read the books and who don't. I It's really important for me to know that gay men are writing gay literature. I am so excited about how MM is helping expand the sexual identity of women. I am so
yes.
excited that they're able to use that and grow from that. But at the end of the day, there is a community of gay men who have to be able to use culture and really what we have as a culture what we've had for thousands of years is the written language.
Yeah.
It's how we communicate, it's how we deal with our emotions, it's how we deal with issues that we are being affected by. So we really need gay male authors. We need own voice authors in all cultures, but
Sure.
gay men need that as well. And so
Yeah.
that's why I think it's so important to have groups like Gay Men Loving Gay Books. And I'm so
Amazing.
glad it's successful.
And I'm happy for you and for our community that it's successful. It's
Yeah.
going to continue to evolve. And thank you for what you're doing for our community on social media. Truly,
But it's not
truly.
just me.
Yeah. What we're
Please
all,
understand that so the reality is over here you've got this ADHD, a little bit spastic, a little crazy, and you got a little of that going on. So it's not just me. You have a group of wonderful authors who have stepped up to the plate and are
sure.
making this happen. So in no way can I take credit for everything. I had an
And we need
idea.
more of that. Amen to that. We need more of that. I certainly want you back on the show, but we're running out of time. Can you please accept the floor and tell us where we can find your books and find you on all the social media platforms?
Well, I am on blakeallwood.com, adamjridley.com. Both work. You can find me on Facebook all over the place. I am author Blake Allwood on Facebook. My group's there, Gay Men Loving Gay Books. If you are a gay, bisexual, transgender, identity, gender male, you are welcome to join us there. And we would love to have you. The more, the merrier.
Amazing. Blake Allwood, thank you so much for coming onto the show today. It's
Thank
certainly
you.
a pleasure
It went
to have
really
you.
fast.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun,
It's
especially in the
true.
Pride and
Very
Promotion
true.
podcast. But thank you so much, Blake. Thank you all for tuning in and listening. Please follow Blake Allwood on social media, purchase his book, support the community, and everybody out there, go forth with pride, and tune in next time for more Pride and Promotion podcasting. Take care. That's a wrap for today's episode of Pride and Promotion. We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and inspiration on how to harness the power of diversity and innovation in your marketing strategies. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for our next episode, where we've got more exciting topics and expert guests lined up just for you. Until then, I'm Joe Federico. You can find me at www.jfedericomarketing.com, and I want to help you go forth with pride and make your mark in the world of marketing.